It doesn't have to be hard to be life-changing. Part of it is that we have been trained to worship the grind, more effort, more hustle, more force. But what if the fastest way to your next level is ease and flow? That's a whole different way of listening. So if you're craving more freedom, more flow, and less friction, this conversation matters right now. Hey there, welcome to Be Unmessablewith the Podcast. I'm your host, Josselyne Herman-Saccio, and today my guest is Sam Kukathas. He is a world authority on collapsing time to realize vision, speaking my language completely. And he's also an expert on having your wealth ceiling before your wealth floor. As the architect of neuro-resonance optimization, he empowers visionary leaders and organizations to expand their global impact, scale their visions, and make ease and flow their default state. I love that. His company, Soul Purpose Leaders, exists to solve the world's most challenging problems for humanity. And I am so happy that he is with us today. So let's welcome Sam.
Thank you, Josselyne. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Yeah, well, it's a real pleasure to have you, and I'm fascinated by what you do. And before we get into what you do, tell us a little bit about how you ended up doing this, because it's not something, that you would think of like an obvious career path, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you a little bit of a backstory because my background was as an academic. So I was a philosopher for 20 years. And in 2017, I didn't get my doctorate in Oxford. And that was a pretty big moment where, okay, if I'm not an academic, then who am I? And I went on a journey of personal development for the next sort of, 8 years or so. And then, along that way, I think I got woken up probably really in 2022 to something bigger than what I knew was really possible for myself when I was doing a plant medicine journey. So I did a guided psilocybin and MDMA journey. And the message that I got was essentially, you're here to heal all the bullshit in the world. Now, there are lots of ways to interpret these kinds of psychedelic journeys. You could have them just be a nice experience and then go back to your life, or you could choose to do something with it. Well, in my case, I thought maybe it means I'm a healer. So I followed that instinct. And by chance, a guy that I'd actually done some of his business coaching programs showed up in my email inbox saying, "Oh, the world's going to need healers. So because you've worked with me before, I'm going to give you this for free." And I was like, all right, well, I wanted to do this before, but my partner thought this would probably be snake oil. So now I've got no excuses. So within minutes, I'd signed up for that. And on the second day of the training, that's when I really started to discover, I can do something with energy, which is really profound. And I really started to cultivate that skill set. But I also noticed there was something which was happening in the healing space, which was the focus on healing. And for me, it was like, well, what are you going to do with that healing? What do you want to actually create in life? And I, worked a lot with Landmark, which I know you spent a lot of time with. And so that had really taught me about the creation side of things rather than just the fix or to heal something. So I was looking at, okay, what do people want to create in their lives? And then let's use these different tools to be able to facilitate a space for them to do that. And what happened very organically is that over time, there was an upgrade in terms of the ways in which I could help people with that. So it shifted from being able to do more like traditional energy healing with my hands to being able to use my breath to be able to shift things both at a physical level in terms of pain within the body, but also in terms of helping them create what they wanted. And then it was, I think, in late 2023 where I got a shift in saying like, oh, your company is called Soul Purpose Leaders, which was quite an odd thing for me to hear at the time because I had a company called The Philosophical Coach. And basically, I listened to the guidance which was coming and I followed that. And then 2 months later, these sound frequencies, which I now work with, started to emerge. And I didn't understand or know why that was happening. I understand more of that now, but it literally was something which just emerged. And I just worked with different kinds of leaders to expand my own capacity energetically rather than figuring anything out or being trained as a sound healer or any of these other things that people tend to do. So that's really how the pathway is kind of unfolded, has been very organic and just keep listening to the guidance that's been coming.
I think that's such a missing thing in entrepreneurship, especially. People end up with plans and they're unable to pivot or dance with what gets uncovered and discovered. So that's an important thing for those of you listening to, take note of, like be open to the discovery of what's emerging versus being, etched in stone. I always say etch it in sand because you don't know what life is going to bring you, right? And when you talk about, because this is very interesting to me, when I work with entrepreneurs, a lot of what I work with them on is creating more freedom, creation, freedom, performance. But freedom often has to do with time. And you talk about collapsing time. What does that mean? Because I want some of that,
Yeah, like in the end, it's pretty simple. So a lot of my work is around bypassing the cognitive mind. But to do that, we've got to understand two principles. The first is that, and this is one that I actually saw when I was a philosopher, and this is the idea that nothing real is produced by time, but everything's produced in time.
Hmm.
So if we take that as a kind of starting point, it's like, okay, well, so our relationship to time is skewed. And so we think that we're, living in the past, we're living in into the future and living in now. But, as far as I can see, there's only really now. But that actually means we have an incredible opportunity to be able to go back into the past and to experience it in a way where that is literally dissolved from our cellular memory. Like I had people who've gone through experiences, for instance, I remember working with a woman who had a really traumatic experience of giving birth. And the pain of that was what's showing up energetically within her body. And I think probably about 5-10 minutes after we started that work, she said, I can't even remember the experience of giving birth and the trauma around it. And I was like, oh, that's fascinating, right? Like you could literally dissolve whatever is there, both within the cellular memory, but also in terms of what's going on in the brain. So, and the
Like linguistically, you mean like what's going on on the
no,
brain?
no, literally in terms of like the beliefs, the concerns, the thoughts that are there. So they'll say something like, it's like that didn't happen before. It's like that trauma which was there is that no longer exists for them, right? But probably the easiest example to give you is when it comes to things like finance, because this is one of the things that people come to me all the time for. And what we'll do is we'll look at, okay, what do you want to create in the world, and what does it look like financially to create that vision? And I remember one client who came in and they'd written to me that they wanted to create $4.50 Canadian in the next 2 years. And I said, do you realize what you wrote? And they said, no. I said, what did you actually mean to write? I said, oh, it's 4.5 million. Okay, great. So let's look at that in the session. And the first thing I asked them was what their subconscious belief was about money. And they said, money is poverty. And so what I did with them is I went into all the subconscious patterning that was there around money. I looked at the history of their relationship to money, not just for themselves, but also for their parent. We started to connect energetically with what the emotion that was tied to that, where that lies within their cellular body, have those sound frequencies correspond with that emotion in a way that it could create a space for it to be honored. Because when you honor the emotion, it creates a space for the transmutation of that energy. Otherwise, it's just like anything else in life where you don't feel seen and heard. The same as with anything energetically within us, it wants to be seen, heard, and acknowledged. You create that space and it opens up a space. And the more you open up that space, the more it activates more intelligence within yourselves. And so within an hour, it went from money is poverty and I want to create $4.5 million in the next 2 years to I want to create $100 million. And I see $100 million vision emerging in the next 5 years. And this is the way I'm going to do it. So we collapsed the timeline of what he saw was possible for himself within the space of an hour, just through clearing these old patterns, which were there at a cellular level around wealth creation and the level of impact that they could create.
Interesting. I can see what you mean by collapsing time, because if you take away all the drama or trauma that's taking up space, then time would collapse because there's nothing holding it together with a whole story or narrative about what's possible or not possible.
100%. And there's another element to this. So what I also get people to do is experience the vision already happening. And
Yeah.
so you can imagine like a sound frequency. So we know that it's really important people are grounded, right? If you want to bring something through, receive it in materiality, you need to be grounded. You can't just be floating up in the sky. So it's great to be able to connect with your higher self, but you need to connect with the higher self in a way which is grounded. So what I do is I bring through frequencies, which you can imagine them almost coming from the crust of the earth. And so they're very, very base level, earthy sound. And then it goes gradually higher and higher and higher until you're reaching frequencies which people might describe as more like Mariah Carey's level of frequency. And in between those two spaces, something happened. And people get access to experiencing that vision already being fulfilled. And from the space of that vision already being fulfilled, I'm getting them to identify and express exactly what it is they're seeing. And then we'll deepen that over and over. And then what we're going to do is we're going to walk back in to say, okay, now you're here in this present moment. I want you to see what actually transpired between where you are, out there in the future and right now, which allowed for this to happen. And then again, their mind is so brilliant. They've connected into this unified field of consciousness. They don't have to figure anything out. They start to see exactly what's next. Sometimes it's just a state of being. Okay, I just being there. And then from being that, it allows for this to happen. Okay, great. Other times, like, no, this is the exact actions I need to take, and this is what's going to help me do that in the next process, right? So that's the other aspect of the collapsing time.
And when you talk about wealth ceilings, is that sort of what you're referring to with that client, or?
For sure. Like, it's the idea that whatever the ceiling was becomes the floor. And then people just keep expanding in a ways where, they just keep going beyond any cognitive idea of what they could actually truly create.
Beautiful. So we're taking the lid off, basically,
Exactly.
of what's possible. I love it. And when you talk about neuroresonance optimization, what is that compared to other kind of high performance methodologies that people might be familiar with?
For sure. So I simply described it as, so the neuro is relating to the subconscious mind. The resonance is the resonant frequency that you're at. So the same way that we resonate with certain people, we resonate with certain ideas, there are certain things which are not resonating at the level that they need to bring them forth into our life. And so what I'm doing is guiding people to experience exactly what they're, that they can resonate at a frequency where they can receive what they want. And then from that optimized state, we're pulling it towards them and bringing it forward. But yeah, but I'll say, but in terms of how it differs from some of these other methodologies, well, there's a lot of work on flow state, and I'm a big fan of people like Stephen Kotler and how it's been influenced by Csikszentmihalyi. But what I seem to feel is that there's an old paradigm. It's almost like the old paradigm of leadership, where it's a very push approach to creating flow. So it's like, if I act a lot, I will get into flow. It's a bit like the idea that to create confidence, you need to act a lot, and then eventually you will become confident. And no doubt you can do it that way. But there's an easier way to create flow, there's an easier way to create confidence. And all that requires is just you shift what's there at a cellular level. And when you shift what's there at a cellular level, you just become confident. You speak in a different way. Your being speaks in a different way. You articulate in a different way. You see things in a different way, and you operate from flow. Like, I remember someone recently was saying, like, oh, Sam, like, after that session with you, I wrote like 150 pages of legal documentation, which would normally take 6 weeks in the day. I was like, what? Like, that's hard for me to comprehend, but it's the level of flow that person's in, because they're already brilliant, right? But once you get them out of their way, they're able to tap into this entire different level of what was possible for them. So I think what I'm really seeing is that NRO provides an opportunity to transform what we understand by flow state by bringing it to the cellular level of flow.
Gotcha. So it's similar. I mean, I know you have a background in Landmark, and I used to lead the forum and the advanced course. And one of the principles we had is be, do, have versus have, do, be. And if you start with the being, that you'll naturally take the actions, and then you're going to have the results of that being versus trying to get what you need to get and do what you need to do in order to become blah, blah, blah. So it sounds similar to that, but at a cellular level, which is interesting to me, how you not diagnose, but how do you design the sound program for somebody based on what they want, or is it based on where they are? How does that work?
Yeah, it's purely custom to every single individual for anything they want. So I can say, like, we could literally transmute any challenge of the human condition through sound frequencies. So I always say, I don't put any holds barred on what you bring in. So the first time, for instance, someone came to me with dealing with something around their health was around gut health. I had no experience in working with gut health, but I know what the process is. So I had a trust that if I was to utilize this same process and help them look at all of the different experiences which had happened over the last 17 years, which were related to their gut health, and what we might be able to create a result where they wouldn't be dealing with that same issue. And, within the space of, I think, about 90 minutes, I remember we We went through where the issue started, what was going on in their life before that happened, what were the recurring thoughts were still there now, what were the fears and concerns they had now, experiencing everything that was there. And so by the end, they were saying, like, I'm experiencing new flora being formed in my spleen and in these other organs where the gut had been impacted, right? And for me, I was just like, well, that's fascinating. Like, I know one, it improved their health, but it was like, okay, if that's possible here, where is it not possible? So
Yeah.
that process has been what's really guided me. It's a very playful, intuitive process where I'm asking what someone's intention is, what is they want to bring forth. We're looking at what's in the way. From clearing what's in the way, we're allowing their wisdom and guidance to show us the way forward.
I love it. It sounds so organic and natural. That's what I like about it. It's not like a process. It's more like an unraveling of something.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, perfect.
And when you work with people, what do you find is the biggest thing that gets in the way or messes with them, in my language? What is it that kind of throws them off track to being able to release all of this?
I think there are a few things. I think one of the biggest ones is the belief it has to be hard. I think the language of hard is something that we've been so ingrained in for such a long period of time. It's like, oh, hard work is a badge of honor. Certainly as an academic, that was the approach that I took.
Right. Yeah, sure.
So it was like, this is the way you have to do it. Or you've grown up with parents who really worked hard to create results and you really honor and respect the fact that your parents did that. And so you think you need to do the same, or you don't even think you need to do the same. Your body thinks you need to do the same.
Yeah.
And so it's still programmed to operate from that context. So I think deleting the belief that it has to be hard is one of the first things that I look to do with people, because all of my work is around creating ease and freedom. So for me, the two tend to be misaligned. If you think it's hard and you want to be free, well, let's see how
counterintuitive. Yeah.
Totally. So I think if you can get to a place where you can see, oh, actually, this gets to be effortless, this gets to be easy, then the whole realm of what you see as possible and the level of impact you can make transforms.
Beautiful. I love it. And tell me, what's a situation in your life where you were dealing with something really difficult? Maybe it was a circumstance or a person or a situation where it could have taken you out for the count, but you were able to transcend it and emerge what I call unmessable with.
Yeah. Look, I think there are a couple of things. Like, certainly for me, when this work came through with sound frequencies, it was incredibly weird. Like, I didn't know whether to stick or twist. Like, I was already doing something which was very, very potent, but it was already unusual. And I didn't really know, do I want to go down this path? Like, people are already paying me to do this thing. They haven't paid for me to bring in this element to it. So is it even got integrity to do that? Was it concern? So all of that was sort of showing up. Within a month, I was just like, you know what? This is actually more potent than anything I've created before. So I'm just going to roll with the fact that this has come through for a reason. And from that moment on, I stuck with it no matter what. Like, it didn't matter whether someone was like, this is weird, or, had some skepticism. Like, none of it mattered, because this trust and the certainty became like the pillars of every aspect of my life. But it also then played out a role in business. Like, even when there were times where it was challenging in business, and then I have a partner go, oh, maybe you want to get some side job or something. I'm like, no. Like, I am so clear on the power of this work that I will keep doing it until it creates the impact that it's meant to create. So there's nothing which could get in my way around the decisiveness of, like, this is the path forward. Like, I am going to be unwavering because I can see the impact. I can see what people are sharing out there in the world, and I get to witness it time and time again. So that just creates a hell of a lot of trust and certainty.
Yeah, I was going to say, what did you draw upon? But it sounds like it was trust. You trusted your vision and trusted yourself to fulfill on it.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, that's a big thing for people. I think that gets in a lot of people's ways is they don't trust themselves. Mostly it's themselves, or they don't trust the world or the circumstances. But ultimately, it comes back to, trusting yourself, I think, for most people.
I think so. Like, one of the spaces that I'm looking at is the transformation of politics. And, I always identify, well, people always talk about politicians aren't trusted. There's a lack of trust in politics. Well, why is that? Well, there's obviously a number of reasons. First, you've got the internal experience of a politician who doesn't trust themselves, to then creates relationships out in the world which are not trustworthy. And then you've got the
religious system, the way the system is designed, which is not exactly designed to foster trust.
Totally. Totally. But then it's like, where's the first time that you stopped trusting someone who what you thought was a friend? Well, if you've got that in your system, it's likely that you're going to look at those in your political party as not trustworthy at some point in time. You're going to see them as competing with your interest or something like that. So you've got to clear that, is my feeling. Then it's like, well, who's an enemy in my life, right? Who was being an enemy? Okay, well, I can't trust those people because I've had this experience of being, mistreated. Okay, so then we deal with that level. It's like if you build through each of these levels of where trust has been broken, you will start to create a new relationship to the people around you. I've seen this many times. People are like, oh, no, I haven't got the team I want. And it's like, no, you don't trust people. Because if you trusted the people, the team would have just emerged naturally. But if you think it has to be you have to be in control, otherwise it's not going to be good enough, then you're going to be dealing with the same problem.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest pitfalls for entrepreneurs, and why they don't have freedom is because they can't delegate and give things away. Either they don't trust their team or they don't trust themselves to train their team, in a way where the result's going to get produced how they envision it. It's an interesting, very common stumbling block or thing that messes with people for sure. But it's fascinating what you're talking about, and I'm wondering how people can find out more or, get to know more of your work or even work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few different ways. First of all, I'm on social media, so you can find me under Soul Purpose Leaders on LinkedIn, on Facebook and Instagram. I'm under Sam Kukathas, and then our website is soulpurposeleaders.com.
And we'll put all that in the show notes so that people can just click.
Yeah. And one thing I'll say is, we're really looking at how we can solve the world's most challenging problem. Like, that is the reason this company exists. Whether it's to support the visionaries who've got the most audacious visions for humanity, or whether it's to look at the spaces. So we work in sustainability, we work on the transformation of health, we have this initiative around politics, we're looking at work around finance. So wherever there's a space where there's something which could completely shift the game, the system, that what we've known as the existing paradigm, that's where we bring this work in.
That's the game onness for you. I love it. Yes, I would call that big game on. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to be with us today. And for those of you listening, if you got value out of today's episode, if you heard something that sparked something in you, make sure to like or comment or share the episode, most importantly, to somebody that you think would gain some knowledge or insight or inspiration out of the conversation today. So thank you so much, Sam.
When you stop arguing with reality and start honoring what's true in your body, time bends. Ease isn't laziness, it's alignment. From there, clarity shows up and actions get simplified and results elevate. So to help you flip that switch fast, grab my free instant reset guide. The link is in the description, and use it the next time you feel stuck so that you can get back into alignment in minutes. Then to keep the momentum, I would watch the next episode right now. My name's Josselyne, and I'll meet you in the next video.